Good morning, Wall Street winners. It is Tuesday, July 23rd, and we have started to see some earnings come in this morning. But before we get to those, let's start off with where we are in the indices. You can see that the Dow Jones is up 24 points, which is only 0.06%, so pretty much flat. The S&P is about the same. It's up about 4 points or 0.07%, and the NASDAQ is off, call it 11 points, 10.75, which is 0.05%. So we're basically even, but I do think that's going to change because we're 20 minutes after 8 a.m., so we're about an hour and 10 minutes away from the open, and we've started to see some earnings come across the wire. Some of them started at 6 a.m., but others are just coming in. Spotify just came in, a stock we don't follow, and it is up significantly based on a good earnings release and call it earnings surprise. We've had a lot of companies come in. I'm not going to go through all of them because I don't follow all of them, but it looks fairly positive. What we're starting to see as a trend before we get into the actual earnings is we seem to be seeing a bit of a shift in consumer sentiment and spending. We're seeing that airline stocks are taking a bit of a hit due to an unexpectedly low amount of travel going on, particularly domestic travel. International travel seems to be okay. It's not great, but it seems to be okay. But domestic travel in North America seems to be down over the summer months. So what that's telling me is that if people are still traveling, they're doing it in their automobiles, and those are either EVs or combustion engines. And if the majority are still combustion engines, it is going to consume fuel. And so if we move from this quarter, and we're starting to see oil come out with results, so we're going to start to see what that looks like primarily on Thursday, but we've started to see some results, and they were a mixed bag on Friday with Halliburton and SLB. But we are starting to see some others come out, and we'll get into that because one stock is off significantly today in the oil market. If we look at healthcare and retail, not a lot going on from an earnings perspective in retail. PepsiCo and Frito-Lay came out today with earnings. Again, not a stock I follow. I'm not going to comment on that one. But you can see that for the most part, retail is just kind of flat. It's in the green at the start today, which is a positive, but it doesn't seem to be doing anything significant. Healthcare on the other side. Healthcare, HCA Healthcare of America came out with earnings today. It's up almost 5% pre-market. So that's interesting. They came out with better than expected earnings quarter over quarter, comparing Q2 of 2024 to Q2 2023. Many positive improvements. And that seems to be lifting Humana. So Humana doesn't announce for another 8 days, but it is up 3.33%. Probably based on the earnings release from HCA. So that's an interesting correlation there. And then we get down into transport. We've got CNR reporting today after market close. So this is one of the many coming out today. It's a busy early earnings calendar between, I'm going to say 4 to 5:30 this afternoon after the markets are closed. I'm not expecting amazing results from CNR. So I'm not buying into CNR. I don't hold any CNR right now. I think that there's a potential based on what we saw with JB Hunt and their earnings for the same thing to happen with CNR. We may see earnings be less than positive, little off of estimates. And if that's the case, I would expect CNR to drop down into the low 160s, maybe even the high 150s. That said, if they come out with an earnings surprise that's positive, it could jump into the 170s. I'm not convinced either way at this point, so I'm staying out of that. We get down into oil, and we have a bit of a mixed bag here in oil. We have seen SLB report good results, Halliburton not so good, and it reflected in the stock prices. SLB's been going up, Halliburton's been going down. Crude is up and positive this morning, but it is still 5 cents below $80 a barrel for August 24th crude futures. So we have to see crude come back up into the 82 to 85 range for these things to really start to move in Q3, in my opinion. The one that's hit today, which was interesting, but it's only momentary, so it's gone, Valero. So Valero, you can see from the chart here, it dropped $5 just before or around 8 a.m. and no explanation as to why. I looked at that and thought, oh man, like earnings aren't until Thursday. What's going on? Scroll down here and there's an earnings preview, but for CVR Energy in the Valero latest news. And there is a little mention of Valero in that, and the fact that Zacks does not believe, Zacks was the writer of the article on the website, they do not believe that earnings are going to be positive and favorable for Valero this quarter, and they give their consensus and their reason why. I am not in agreement with that. I think Valero, although revenues may be down, because a few years ago, all oil company revenues were at all-time highs. So you can't expect them to beat all-time highs all the time, but that doesn't mean that if revenues go down, profitability isn't strong. And Valero is generating a tremendous amount of free cash flow. They're geographically dispersed. They're well positioned in the industry. They're a market share, they're a significant market share leader. And I think there's a lot of positives around this. So that spike has corrected. It's back up to kind of where it closed yesterday. In fact, it's above where it closed. But that was a bit of an oddity this morning. But it goes to a point that if you want to try to make money in the market, you can put in low ball offers during the pre-market or post-market and see if they close. They may actually close for you. Those orders may get filled. And that is one way to potentially take some money out with very little risk if you're coming in at $5 below the close price and your whatever it is for a block of 100 closes. Maybe it's a block of 1,000, maybe it's more. But if you can get it at that discount, you can basically sell it at open for a $5 profit, if not $5.50 at this point, based on where the stock's moving. So not a bad strategy. Whether it works or not all the time, it's definitely not going to work all the time, but it is a potential strategy to work with. If we continue scrolling down through oil, we can see that there is a mix of red and green on the screen. So we'll continue moving down into technology. Technology, although the NASDAQ is down right now, it's not down a lot. And we are seeing a bit of a comeback for semiconductors. But today is a day for companies like Google and a few others that are reporting. So it'll be interesting to hear the results from these large entities. The potential acquisition that Google was trying to make of private company Wix for, I think it was $23 billion. It has fallen through. Wix is going to try to IPO instead of get bought by Google. So I think that's going to help Google from a certain perspective, because acquisitions are often a drag on the acquirer's stock price. It boosts the company being acquired, but that company that is making the acquisition, the price typically goes down. So we should see a bit of a recovery, I think, in Google today. And I do think we'll get some positive earnings out of that machine, that business Google. It is just a money-making machine. If we scroll down through our list here, we can see CRM has started to make a comeback. That's one, the Salesforce, that I would definitely consider buying into. Their earnings are later in the quarter, and I do think that we're going to see some strong results out of CRM. PanW has had some good days, really thanks to the bad days of CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike looks like it's going to make a bit of a comeback today, down at 263, opening up maybe 330 higher right now in the pre-market, but it was off $41 yesterday, and it's come off of a high of 390. So it's down $130 in the last couple of weeks, really since Friday. But it was dropping before then for other reasons. We've got a number of others to have a look at here today. ARM is off $1.05. Not really a significant move for this stock. I think it'll probably be up again today, but it is down off some recent highs. AMD coming out with results soon, 7 days. So next week, we're going to see results from AMD. It is off almost $2 this morning. Might be an interesting acquisition going into earnings next week, because we should see some positive news out of AMD and most of the chip makers. We've got Workday, which was off yesterday, but back up around the 228s. If it opens down $6 today for whatever reason, that would be an interesting acquisition at 223. I think that when we see earnings from this, which again come out later in the quarter towards the end of August, we should see some positive results there. They did have a bad quarter last quarter, and they should rectify that this quarter. Tesla Tesla comes out today, so this is going to be a big one to watch. And the swings on this could be pretty significant, as we've seen in the past, looking back to historical swings. But this stock has been on a strong run this year, and I'm not sure the news behind it is enough to justify it. So there's a lot of hype around robo-taxis. That was supposed to come out in August. It's now been pushed to October. Obviously, it's a phenomenal company. Musk is an incredibly smart man. He does some crazy things and some odd things, but he also does some extremely intelligent things and more intelligent things than the others. But we're going to have to sit and watch this one. I've got a little bit of Tesla right now. I'm going to play a wait and see game on Tesla because I don't want to get caught on the downside. The one I've been stocking up on myself is Meta. Meta has had a great comeback from the, if we take a look at the 1 month chart here, it dipped down to 459, 460, and now it is up to 487. This is a stock that hit 540 not so long ago. So I'm waiting for earnings. They're coming out next week on Meta. If we take a look at that, we've got 8 days to earnings for Meta. I think they're going to be very positive. I believe that stock is going to be a $530, $540 stock in the next couple of weeks. We then have NVIDIA. NVIDIA had a good day yesterday, up $5.60, but it is off a little bit pre-market. Again, I think we're going to see NVIDIA climb back into the 130s, currently down in the 123 range, so some opportunity there. And then TSM, the other company in the semiconductor space that had great results last week, but it took a hit and came down with all the semis. It is back up into the 170s. I think this stock is going to get back up into the 180, 185 range within the next couple of weeks. If we start to see good tech earnings, it's going to lift the stronger tech names. So keep an eye out for that. We've got SoFi in the financials. So financials had some reporting this morning. Bank of California reported, and in my opinion, looking at the results were actually quite strong. They unloaded a ton, like billions of dollars worth of residential mortgages and sold them off on July 18th and eliminated that risk from their asset book. It is changed their capital ratios to the positive. They reported strong earnings, strong cash flow, a number of net interest income was strong, and yet they're being dragged down 5%. I think this is going to correct, and I think this stock will come back up into the mid 15 range, maybe even as high as 16, but it seems like they're moving in a positive direction, and I don't see a great deal of difference in their results from that of M&T Bank, or for that matter, Zion, which announced after hours yesterday, at the end of the day, Monday, and they shot up and are looking like they're going back up again as we go into the open this morning. So similar results, but negative, but a different result on what the stock is doing. So Bank of California dropping on what I see to be positive results, unless I've missed something, and Zion and M&T going up on positive results. So we'll see what happens there. The one I'm looking at for tomorrow in finance is Raymond James Financial. So this stock is down almost 1% pre-market, just under 109. I think they're going to have some good results tomorrow. We heard from Charles Schwab last week. Schwab's results were not positive. The stock took a hit, but Raymond James has a much more of a wealth management focus than Charles Schwab does. And I think that their business has only gotten stronger. And I do believe that this stock is going to pop between $3 and $8 on earnings when they're announced and positive, beating expectations. So I'm going to keep an eye on this one today and see what it does, and probably acquire a little bit of RJF. Still loving SoFi. It came down to 738, which is where I would buy it if we were going forward. So I'm going to wait for a bit of a pullback on that. And then the others, I'm just watching. I'm waiting and seeing on the finance side. I think there's going to be more activity as we get into tech today. Looking at the events calendar, just to give you a heads up, after market, the big ones today, Visa from a finance perspective, that would be a strong buy for me. CNR is a wait and see. Google, a strong buy, and Tesla, a wait and see. And that's where we are today. Good luck with your trades. If you're liking these videos,